Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Fragrance Report, a podcast where we explore the culture, history, and influence of the fragrance industry. I'm your host, Anya, and today's episode is quite exciting. We're going to be discussing one of the most influential and renowned perfumers of the 21st century, none other than Francis Kurkdjian, the mastermind behind Baccarat Rouge and a host of other fragrances. He is known for creating Baccarat Rouge, but he also created a best-selling fragrance at the young age of just 26. We're going to be talking about his life, his techniques, what he's known for, and also explore some of his opinions regarding fragrances. For those of you who are unaware, he's actually been a longtime supporter of using synthetic materials in fragrance. He also has some other signature techniques that he is known for, and we're also going to be diving into his marketing strategy, his olfactory techniques, and if you're interested in learning more, definitely do keep on listening to the podcast. But if this is your first time listening to the podcast, this is the Fragrance Report. We talk about fragrance history and also some contemporary topics as well. And we publish a new episode of this podcast every single Wednesday on Spotify and on YouTube. So whether you're watching on either platform, welcome. Do consider following the podcast. I'm excited to get into this episode, so let's get started. So let's kick things off with some fragrance favorites. I have here two excellent fragrances that I absolutely love. You might have already heard me mention these before, but I didn't really have any other new fragrances to talk about. These are quite frankly like the best fragrances that I've been wearing right now. I love them so much. We have A Grove by the Sea by Arquiste. This is a gorgeous aromatic herbal perfume. It's supposed to evoke being in the Mediterranean, olive groves, fig trees, that sort of thing. So this fragrance has notes of olive, fig leaf, salt, fennel, and clementine at the top, amid of olive, fig, thyme, and rosemary, and then a base of balsam fir, pine needles, cypress, and clay. This is excellent. I'm actually wearing it as my fragrance of the day. It is so delicious. The salt adds a bit of a refreshing factor to it that I just find so addictive, and I've been making quite a dent in this. Plus the bottle looks like sea glass. I love it so much. So this is one of my favorites for sure. I've been wearing this a lot. And then we have Infinite Oud by House of Beau. So this is a new addition to my collection. I just bought it a week or two ago. I have been obsessed with this. So this has top notes of myrrh, peyote, and vetiver, amid of cedar, patchouli, and black pepper, and then a base of incense, oud, and gurjon balsam. This smells like a delicious, clean smelling oud. I absolutely love vetiver, and in this fragrance it pairs so brilliantly with the oud note. It really ends up smelling quite elegant. This is also a very potent perfume. A little bit goes a long way, so this fragrance will come and go for a while. It will stay on your skin. It's not going anywhere, especially if you spray it on fabric. What's interesting about this is I actually took a travel spray of this to Chicago when I went, I believe it was last week, and the travel spray leaked in my handbag, and now my credit cards, my ID, hair ties, everything smells like Infinite Oud. Not complaining, but that's kind of expensive. But regardless, I love this so much. This is absolutely brilliant. I just think it's such a gorgeous, clean smelling oud fragrance. It's a very beginner friendly oud perfume. I would say it's quite a safe option if you're trying to dip your toes into oud fragrances and try them out. I would recommend trying their discovery set. The way the House of Beau do their discovery sets, by the way, is that they sell 10 milliliter sizes that you can pick out. So let's just say you want to get three fragrance discovery set. Well, you can actually custom build your discovery set depending on what you want to try. So I think that's amazing, and that costs I think $90 full price, but they have a lot of discounts going sometimes, so you can definitely get it for lower. But I think that is a great price point, and that's actually how I tried Infinite Oud first of all. So yeah, really love this. This is an excellent fragrance. If you want to see some more favorites of mine, I would also recommend checking back into yesterday's YouTube video where I talked about my favorite fragrances for the entire month of May. It was a long month. There's a lot to talk about. There are some fragrances that you will see, such as Infinite Oud and Arquiste, piece, but I also have some other new favorites that you should definitely check out as well. What I find really interesting about Francis Kurkdjian is that he is just about as close as you can get to a household name in the fragrance world. And even if someone isn't into fragrance, chances are they have heard of Baccarat Rouge, or they at least want to smell it. And if they haven't heard of it whatsoever, they might have tried Cloud, or one of the countless interpretations of this scent profile that he created. Francis Kurkdjian is such an innovative character. He is such a trailblazer in the fragrance world. So I'm excited to talk about him and his background today. So a little bit about his history. He was born in 1969 to Armenian parents in Paris. He had a love of perfume that began early, and he once said that he decided to become a perfumer at the age of 13 after being fascinated by the smell of his sister's fragrances. But this road to perfume making wasn't as straightforward as one might expect. He actually started training in ballet and piano, and he then pivoted to fragrance when he enrolled at IPSCA, the prestigious perfumery school in Versailles. From there, he was accepted into Quest International, now part of Givaudan, where he would begin building a formidable portfolio. Kurkdjian's breakthrough moment came at the age of just 26, when in 1995, he was a perfumer behind Le Male, created for Jean-Paul Gaultier. This scent was a revelation, and it had a blend of mint, lavender, and vanilla, and it broke through the hypermasculine trends of the time and became an instant classic. And it remains one of the best-selling and most renowned men's fragrances in the world to this day. When he was later interviewed about Le Male, Kurkdjian reflected that he was inspired by the fantasy of a man, which in a way is reflected in the scent profile itself, but also can be echoed in the actual bottle design, which is that iconic male torso. So notable fragrances include My Burberry, which was created in 2014. This was created with Christopher Bailey, and it was meant to evoke a London garden after the rain. Another fragrance, Elisabeth Le Parfum, created in 2011. This is a luminous orange blossom and honey creation, widely praised for its femininity and approach to florals. And then Narcisa Rodriguez for her Musk collection, which is still a cult favorite in the designer market. In 2009, he opened up his own fragrance atelier, Maison Francis Kurkdjian, with his business partner, Marc Shaya. The idea was to create a fragrance brand where perfumery was treated as a true art form on par with haute couture. The house debuted with a curated selection of scents. You might recognize some of these names: Aqua Universalis, a poem which stands for a part of me, and Lumière Noire, all fragrances that were supposed to evoke purity, identity, and intimacy. But of course, it was the trailblazing Baccarat Rouge 540 that would define the house and possibly a whole era and trend of fragrance. This was released in 2014, and it was released to commemorate the Crystal House's Baccarat's 250th anniversary, and it has a very unique blend of saffron, ambergris, and cedarwood that has created a global phenomenon. And this is a fragrance that is renowned not just in the niche fragrance market. In fact, it is known by people who maybe are not even aware of that many niche fragrances. It has truly become a household name in the fragrance world. Let's talk a little bit about his technique when it comes to fragrances. What specifically sets him apart compared to other perfumers? Well, he is known for creating luminescent scents that are supposed to be inspired by a palette of emotions shaped by light. He believes that freshness is as important to a fragrance as water is to light. He designs scents that are meant to project light, so the wearer doesn't just smell good, but radiates the fragrance. So So that's why when you think about the fragrances that he is known for example, Baccarat Rouge 540, that fragrance is specifically known for its sillage. When you're standing next to someone who's wearing Baccarat Rouge 540, it may come and go, and you may even be, for example, down the grocery aisle from someone wearing Baccarat Rouge 540, and you will still smell the fragrance. But when you walk up next to that person, you might not smell it anymore. This kind of like push and pull effect, this uniqueness, shall we say, when it comes to the way he does his fragrances, when it comes to the sillage in these fragrances, is something that has become his signature. And that's why, even though there's so many interpretations of Baccarat Rouge 540, for example, not one fragrance has ever come close to the execution of the perfume. Some fragrance houses may have been able to mimic the notes, but they cannot mimic the execution that is entirely unique to the original fragrance. So the way he creates these luminescent fragrances include an airy top, a light heart, and a base of the fragrance, if you will. So the airy top usually includes notes like bergamot, jasmine, or hedoin. The light heart includes notes like lavender, rose, and orange blossom. And then the base will typically include ambroxan, musks, cedarwood, or ethyl maltol. So the hedoin and citrus at the top is placed there to scatter the scent molecules, giving a diffused halo top. The lightness of the florals in the middle are supposed to be bright florals that keep the center weightless yet emotional. And then the ambroxan and musks at the base act like glass fibers, transparent yet powerfully diffusive, while ethyl maltol adds a glowing ember. So when we break down some of his most known fragrances, for example, Grand Soir, the top has notes of orange and labdanum. The orange echoes this structure that we just talked about. The mid has lavender and benzoin, lavender also included in that blueprint that we just mentioned. And then the base includes akigala wood, musks, and amber. Baccarat Rouge 540 includes top notes of saffron and jasmine. Again, jasmine opens up that fragrance. Then ambergris and hedoin in the mid, and then ambroxan, cedar, and sugar in the base. Aqua Universalis includes top notes of lemon and bergamot. Again, the bergamot adds to this framework, and then it includes a mid of rose and jasmine. Again, two notes that are known for being in his template. And then we have that base of woods and musks. Of course, this is a very kind of streamlined version of these notes. If you look up these notes and these fragrances in Fragrantica specifically, you will find a much more robust scent pyramid. I'm just picking out some specific notes that are included in this fragrance that adhere to his framework that has become his signature. Now, his strategy also includes coming up with the name of the fragrance first and then going into the story and the notes of the fragrance. He says, I am name driven, feelings driven. The composition comes after. He often will jot titles down in a notebook before even touching the materials to create the fragrance. He also loves the idea of creating evergreen fragrances. While he may be a trendsetter, he is not driven by trends. He loves to create fragrances based on his creative interpretation and inspiration. He also is constantly inspired by light when it comes to the fragrances, and all of these elements come together to create broad appealing fragrances that go viral and are known as some of the most famous perfumes in the industry. He has also shared some tips about fragrances. He strongly believes that oxygen degrades a fragrance, and this is known to be true, which is why he does recommend getting smaller sizes of fragrances to use up a fragrance faster and to lessen the likelihood of that fragrance changing over time. So he basically says, buy small, finish fast. Oxygen is the natural enemy of perfume, and he prefers smaller vessels because they stay fresh for up to 3 months. Now, I prefer to ignore that because I don't want to feel like I have to buy a new fragrance every time it quote unquote expires. But he also recommends to keep the bottle in its original box or even in the fridge The best place to store a fragrance is the box it came in at room temperature. Treat it like a great cellar wine. Some collectors even keep spare bottles in the refrigerator. He also believes that sweat destroys a perfume. If you're in an intensely hot climate, mist the hair or a sarong instead of your skin. The movement helps diffusion, and sweat won't destroy the perfume. Don't fear synthetics. People love the idea of all natural, but it doesn't always exist. Peony or lily of the valley have to be recreated with synthetic molecules. He also encourages his audience to dress according to their mood and use fragrances as an accessory. He believes that marketing is mostly smoke and mirrors, saying perfume is such an easy subject to lie about. People lie so much about the synthetics, the molecules, the naturals, everything. And he also says perfume in a bottle is a magnifying glass on beauty. You don't put makeup on to look ugly. I think it's also interesting the way he talks about synthetic molecules in fragrance, the way he tries to kind of like dissuade the opinion that synthetics are bad and all naturals are good, because I feel like so many people have this preconceived notion that natural fragrances are the way to go, when in reality you can't really think that like that. And he is one of the expert proponents of the fact that synthetics are not necessarily going to be a bad thing, and just because something is synthetic doesn't necessarily make it cheap. We have Baccarat Rouge 540 as proof positive of it. It's one of the most successful fragrances out there. It is a high-end fragrance, and it definitely cannot be described as smelling cheap. What's also interesting is that he uses his background in dance and music as inspiration for creating his fragrances. He often creates fragrances inspired by the process of writing a musical score, and I think that artistry really helps bolster his creativity. And he was actually also appointed as the creative director of Dior Parfums in 2021. So he is rather busy. He has taken on this role. This was a role previously held by the late Francois de Machy, and his appointment signaled Dior's desire to invest further in the future of olfactive luxury. His first major contribution to the house included L'Or de J'adore, which was a fragrance released in 2023. This was a modern take on the iconic floral with a luminous golden richness. If you're interested in learning more about Dior fragrances, last week I published a fragrance report podcast episode talking all about Christian Dior and his iconic fragrances. Give that a listen if you're interested in learning more. But I definitely enjoyed learning more about Francis Kurkdjian with this episode, because he is such a visionary when it comes to the fragrance world. He has so much knowledge, and he is truly such a trailblazer, and I don't like using that adjective often, but I think it definitely applies to him and his work. Let me know, what are your opinions on Baccarat Rouge 540? Did you learn something new today? Let me know if you want to see any other perfumers be spotlighted in this series. I would be very interested in doing more spotlights like these. But thank you very much for listening, and I will see you in the next one. Bye. This episode's music was brought to you by Kevin McLeod over at Incompetech. This is Beauty Flow by Kevin McLeod at Incompetech.com and is licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license.